and welcome to a very special edition of Wide Open Throttle. We're here on the SRT stand at the New York show, and we have a special guest, Ralph Gilles. Oh, and in case you're wondering, it's coffee. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. No time for wine. Thanks to Porsche for the cappuccinos though. Anyway, let's get started. Ralph, the topic of conversation is obviously the Viper TA. It's one reason why we've got our friend Randy Pobst here, because as you know, we tested a Corvette and a Viper early on, and it caused a bit of controversy.
A lot. It's amazing how, the rivalry lives on, which to me is a wonderful thing, that these two cars, they need each other. It's like a hero and a villain, but it's up to the people out there to decide who's the hero and who's the villain. But yeah, when I saw that first test, we were concerned because those vehicles were not production yet. We were in a rush. The car got a late start in development, but the media plan was in place. Like, we're going to have our media event, come hell or high water. So sure enough, we did that because the track rentals are quite specific sometimes. And those vehicles ended up in the media's hands, and I was terrified because I knew they weren't quite up to snuff yet. So.
Oh, and it is a handful. This is not like the Corvette.
So of course the inevitable happened, and I'll never forget when I saw that test. I'm like, oh my God, sure enough, within the social media world we live in, within moments, it's like, what's wrong with your car, Ralph?
Well, I think you and Ed had some exchanges.
We had a few. I mean, we don't have to talk about that. It's all right.
But to his credit, the first thing we said, hey, can we borrow the V-Box data? He offered it up because that was very interesting, and I'm actually glad to see that Motor Trend tests to that degree. I mean, a lot of detailed feedback. You guys handed over the V-Box, and we used the same equipment, so we overlaid it, and we could see there was some issues. There was something going on in the corner stability, and also the braking, the trepidation. There's a lot going on there, so we looked at it, and we've had the ZR1 as a benchmark. We actually bought one 2 years ago, so it's not the same spec because the tire's been improved. The Michelin Cup has been developed beyond that, so we know what the tire does. Our guys are amazing. Our SRT engineers know that car inside out. So we were a little surprised, but as we dug into it, we said, okay, there's something going on there.
Well, what I'm impressed with is, so the end result is this car, but that story went live, I think it was like December 17th, and then February 20-something, this car was ready.
So we had a staff meeting,
quick,
like literally the next
New Year's,
day.
Right? Yeah.
No, so I read the article, and it was electronic before the paper one came. So we immediately called the staff, and it's like a situation room in the White House. It's like, let's bring the staff together, and we all had ideas of what's going on because it didn't correlate to what we saw in our testing. We were actually, at some tracks we'd be faster than the ZR1, and other places it would favor, but pretty much neck and neck with a slight edge to ours because we have more footprint, more tire footprint, very similar weights, very similar power and torque. So we dug into it and we said, two things are going on here. One, we got to get in the right car, got to get you guys to retest the actual final submission, and secondly, we need a more dedicated track version because the Viper right now, it's about flavors. You got the entry-level car and you've got the GTS, which is more of a Grand Tour. It has lots of bells and whistles, but there is missing that middle link, and we started something with the ACR. The ACR started this new community of serious road racers, and we're not ready for the next-gen ACR yet, but we knew, because the Aeropack was developed already. We already had the carbon wing, we did the wind tunnel development while we were testing the base car. So we had all these tricks, but we never thought of combining them and said, what the hell, let's do a kind of a track special and see what she can do.
The Viper is a natural for that. I mean, with the amazing power, it's a two-seat sports car, one of the two great American sports cars, and the aero package works. Yeah. I could feel it.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Cast your mind back to the first time you drove, the GTS we had. Do you remember, can you sum up again what some of the good and bad, I think, that you experienced?
Good, the engine, the power. Boy, does it have the power off the line. God bless America. Horsepower. And the way it just builds and builds, and it's naturally aspirated, and just the direct response between the throttle and the engine and an naturally aspirated engine is so satisfying, and it's something we have less and less of, frankly, with e-throttles and turbos and, to a lesser extent, superchargers. But I found that the GTS that we drove at that test was a difficult car to drive at the limit. A little snappy on the entry, a difficult car to drive fast, I just gotta say it. And that's also a natural result of something with 600 foot-pound of torque. Two-wheel drive, still a street tire, a racy Pirelli, but still a street tire. And it was tricky. The Corvette was an easier car to take right to the limit right away. Over the corkscrew, power down in second gear. Corvette is an easier, more manageable car to drive because we don't have a lot of time in our Motor Trend tests. And It's got to happen right now.
Well, that's part of, as these guys, and part of my philosophy is that, you know, car, you shouldn't try and, it shouldn't be like wrestling an alligator. You know, it should try and make you able to exploit the limits to its maximum. The Viper's always had that little bit of that frisson of fear at the edge.
And that's what upset us, because we knew we had improved that situation. And that car in particular had an issue. That we actually brought the car back, put it on the alignment rack, and the right rear was towed out. Right. It was actually an eighth towed out, which is a lot for that car. You have a big 355 rubber going the wrong direction. So that compounded things and made it worse. And actually we had it too stiff. And actually Randy noticed that. The vehicle was a little too stiff. Yeah. And for production, we actually softened the suspension, made it more compliant. And Laguna has so many off-camber yumps, and I love that track.
That's why we use it.
I've done driving racing schools there. I love it.
Well, it also what I love about Laguna is that that's the brake test track. Yeah. You know, we noticed there was some fade, whereas, you know, the Vet had bigger carbon brakes, fade free. Yeah. And then, but with this one, I mean,
yeah, we went back to
what'd you do?
So,
what did you do?
So again, our racing programs have really helped us. Matter of fact, in ALMS, they still use steel brakes. So there's a lot left in the steel brake.
Absolutely.
Carbon is not the be-all, end-all. And it's very expensive. A set of carbon brakes is $7,000.
It's outrageous.
Yeah, so we said, let's stick with steel. But in this case, the rotors are actually heavier. We're actually 2 pounds per corner heavier. So we just added more material, more density, which kind of gives you more, elongates the thermal capacity of the rotors.
So your brake is able to stand up to the punishment a lot longer.
Yeah. And we've learned that through our ACRX series. That's exactly that. That actually we're using that rotor in this car now. So it was actually a very quick. We kind of ended up putting things together that always were there. We fused them all into one vehicle called the TA, and it makes for a fantastic track car.
So you've shipped this car out to us, given us, you know, obviously there's a lot of heartburn went on behind the scenes. You pushed a lot of people to develop a car in a matter of months, which is
But that's the way we roll. That's how we roll at Chrysler, you know. So the engineers, and we had a bet going. One of our engineers said, Ralph, I don't think we can, because we're basically talking about beating the ACR with no wings. That's how they saw it.
Right.
Because there's no way, it's impossible, Ralph. And I said, if Randy gets the record again, somehow, some way, you're shaving your head. And Eric Koischle is head of our vehicle dynamics, and he's been with SRT from the beginning of time practically. Phenomenal SCCA multi-time champion, so he knows what he's talking about. Yeah. So when he kind of put doubt in the room, I was nervous. I'm like, you know, it was a roll of the dice. It may or may not.
You totally sandbagged. I remember when we got it, you're like, I don't know, it'll do the record. I'm like, oh,
we
come on.
We didn't know because Laguna's so, you know how it is to test there. We actually went testing the week prior, but because of the sound meter, we had to lift every time, so we didn't know what the car was capable of. And I want to talk about the limit thing, I really do, because I love the way Randy talks about limit, because limit handling is something very few people can get to. You have to be a Randy, or you have to be a racer to get there, but you drive a Viper at 7 tenths, it's like most cars at 10 tenths. Think about the lap times. When you drive in warm-up, you're doing lap times that a Porsche 911 can't even get to, and you're warming up. So everything is relative, you know what I mean? So.
Well, that's true, and that power. But what happens with a regular Joe is he gets to the limit sometimes. And so he's driving and he's not feeling what the car does when he gets there. So it's really important that a car be stable and drivable when they're there. Because they tend to be like this, right? Regular guy, Jonny, running around a racetrack trying to go fast.
Thanks, buddy. I'm gonna lift for one. Oh, maybe I'm not. Okay, didn't lift.
He's our favorite regular guy driver. Whereas a pro is right on that limit all the time.
But I think the Vipers suffered some folklore too. I mean, people before they even drive the car, oh, they're scared.
And that's part of the appeal, though.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
But a lot of that is not true anymore. Even ourselves.
It's not true anymore.
There's guys on our own staff that kind of are trepidatious about it, but once they get comfortable, and you get a little seat time, and the car comes to you. But I have a factoid for you guys. You know, 2.5 years of development, we didn't lose a single development vehicle. Not one had even a spin. Which in the past, it was like you would write off development cars all the time.
The first car I ever spun in my life was a Viper, you know. But I will say with this car,
to the club.
Yeah. But I'll say this car. This one. You know, Randy, I was driving. He was in the passenger seat. Took me around Laguna Seca a few times, and I mean, it's just a sweetheart car.
There's few of those left anymore. A true pure machine. You talk about linearity. We actually worked. It still has an e-throttle, but we mimicked a cable. So it's absolutely real.
Doesn't feel like one.
We got rid of that.
And it's got a real transmission.
Yeah, it's like snickety snick snick.
I'll tell you, when we were just talking about the modern automatics and paddle shifters, they're really great, they're fast, they're smooth, but they're less of a driver's car. It's like a video game in some ways.
Let's use this opportunity since he's here. Pander a little bit to Viper Nation.
Yeah.
That I think really took us to the woodshed on the story. I've read a few of the comments. I don't go in deep. I know you got contacted a lot.
I have to apologize because I put gasoline on the fire, you know, because we're talking about the tire technology is a big deal though. We know what tires can do. Yep. And a little story, we actually went and got a set of the new Michelin Cups and we fashioned a 19-inch rim for our car and we threw it on there to see how, because we had stopped developing the Michelin Cup back in 08 because we didn't use them this time around. And it's literally 2.5 seconds faster with the cups on this car. Yeah. So we know that the cup tire is a very specialized tire. It's really meant for the racer.
It really is a more, almost a pure race tire.
Pirelli makes the same thing. It makes a Trofeo, and they're just not ready in our sizes yet. We're developing something for the future. So I just wanted the community to understand tires are a big part of the equation, you know.
Tires are huge. The single greatest performance tweak you can do to your car is put a good set of tires on.
But you left the courses on and still beat the 0-1. I mean, that's
yes,
that's what actually.
And that's Pirelli was telling us, hey, there's more in the tire. We weren't not getting the best out. So we went back, and the Pirelli engineers said, you just tune it right, and they were absolutely right. So we're actually all amazed that those tires can do what they do. So, but I again have to apologize because I jumped on you guys, and all of us were right and wrong at the same time. There's some details. And
but you know what? You know, I've been around this business a long time. It's great to see someone who's running the business who actually really gives a damn about this sort of stuff instead of just shooting the messenger. He came back to us and said, okay, let's figure out what's happened here.
And very
that's
honorable.
Rare. That's rare, Ralph.
And thank you. And you made us pull this car ahead by easily 8 months, easily.
Well, there's a real story in the fact that the first car we tested was a pre-production car. Yeah, we hear those stories. When I drove the production models at the second test, it was a huge difference.
I think you were 1.5 seconds faster in the production car, and again, same tires, and actually same brakes, just suspension. Yeah. Was
a couple of things going on there too. The pre-production car we tested, turns out had a brand new set of brakes in it. Yeah. Never been run, they weren't burnished in, which on a track like Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, that's critical. And then another thing, in fairness, was I'd already driven a couple other Vipers. Yeah. And the Viper is a car that has its own personality, and you've got to get used to it. It helped me to have already been in a Viper by the time I got back in a GTS, and I darn near went quicker, right? It was way closer.
134 something. Yeah, it was really good.
That is, as cool as the TA is, it's really only 0.6 quicker than a GTS. So that's the whole point. They're all fast. It's just, but I don't want the wrong people buying this car because it'll knock your teeth out. You know, it's a stiffer sway bars. I mean, it's
also quicker, longer.
Yes,
because of the brake package.
And that's what it's meant for. But it would be overkill for someone going down Route 1 or Angeles Crest Highway. You'll never meet the limits of the base car.
I hope not.
I hope not. What's fascinating to me is still a stranger in a strange land. I've been here 9 years, but how American automakers, when I first came here, the idea of them building track specials, you've got the Viper TA downstairs yesterday. GM launched the Z28 Camaro. I mean,
cool car.
It's the sort of thing that BMW would do. It's like the M3 CSL. It's the sort of stuff we usually associate with Europe. Now it's happening here. I think it's terrific.
Totally, and it's our owners are multipolar. Some of them like drag racing, others like show and shine, and a lot of them more. There's 150 private tracks that have showed up in America in the last 15 years. Right. All these club tracks, and these guys buy these cars just to enjoy those tracks. So we're starting to get into that space.
Well, you brought it up. Let's talk about some of the other cars at the show. I mean,
Z28.
Z28. What are your thoughts?
Oh man, you know what? It's something. We did a concept ACR of the Challenger, and my owners, the Moparians, I call them. Within seconds, emails, Ralph, when are you going to do your version of that? So, we're aware of that, and there's people inside the company who think the same way. The Challenger is about to go under the knife. It's actually under the knife as we speak. We're doing a lot to it, and we're going to come with an answer for that and an answer for our friends at Ford. So, there was a point where we didn't know what we were going to do with the Challenger. There's talk about CUDA, a lot of talk about CUDA, and I'll tell you guys out there, the CUDA is not happening anytime soon. It's a rumor that kind of went out of control, and we looked at it, to be honest with you. We looked at the CUDA. We said if we did it, it wouldn't be right to just do a rebodied Challenger. It has to be something intrinsically new. So the platform that would come from is not ready yet. So it's going to be a couple of years out. In the meantime, we said, let's take that investment and reinvest in our baby, the Challenger. So we're going to make what is a great car an outstanding car. So stay tuned. This time next year, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
And with your designer hat on, what have you seen here that you like?
First of all, I'm actually surprised. The first front-wheel drive Mercedes sedan, the CLA. When I'm looking as a designer, it seems odd to me because I've only ever seen, besides the A-Class in Europe and in Canada, it's a tough proportion to get used to on a Mercedes-Benz. When you open the engine bay and you see a crossways like a dart. You know, I was like, whoa, you know. But I wish them well. But it's intriguing. I think I like the new 6 a lot, the Mazda 6. It's their own thing, you know. They have their own aesthetic. It has a lot of determination in the design. And I like the new Kia Soul, hamsters and all. I mean, they had the hamsters at the show, but it's
CTS?
I like it a lot. I really think, and I think the Cadillac brand is really found its mojo, its own direction. They own it, and what I like is they're combining that edgy design with just a little bit of organic blending. So it was a little too starchy in the past. Now it's a nice
I thought
combination.
this car looked much more mature and refined.
It also just has swagger. I mean, it's just bam.
Yeah, but it's not.
You know,
but
and
it's
good though.
Yeah, and it's American. It's its own thing.
no,
You know,
exactly.
just
Respect the
i300 is its
D,
own thing.
respect the D.
There's a Detroitness to it that that's my design winner.
And
for the show.
every show I come to, the American manufacturers are becoming more and more relevant. And to your point, we're doing the handling thing, we're doing the styling, the interiors, the infotainment, and I'm proud of when I see Ford and GM do well. It makes me happy because this country kind of was in this years ago, and it's good to see it back again. So.
You want to go on record on anything you maybe didn't like?
Oh man! I think the new Highlander's a little Confucius. You know, it's a handsome. It's much more. I mean, Toyota's taking more risk now, and the Avalon's gorgeous. I think they did a nice job. But the Highlander looks like a few designers were arguing. You know? But it'll do fine. It's going to kill it. It's much better than the exiting car. So I think.
It's Avalon based.
Yeah. So I like what Toyota's finally getting some swagger, as you say. I like that word a lot.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground this morning, but I think we've got one more little piece of business, and Ed's got a little something for you.
So, you know, we already announced the story online. We did a big video. I just wanted to give you the first look at what your TA is going to look like on the cover.
Oh,
So-
how cool is that? Look at that.
We take
Awesome.
a little bit of
Liberty.
a little bit of liberty.
Motor Trends.
Motor Trend Viper,
Son of a bitch.
the one we forced them to build.
Yes. You know,
I knew you guys would take credit for that.
Well,
But hey, like we need it. We need that kind of input, and I think the better journalism you guys do, the better cars we'll make. So.
Well, Ralph, thank you very much, and thanks again for watching Wide Open Throttle. And make sure you tune in next week. We've got another interesting program for you. Till then, goodbye.